Selamat pagi Bapak Ibu. Izinkan kami dari Bahasa Global untuk membacakan panduan penggunaan fitur penerjemahan pada acara pagi hari ini. Good morning ladies and gentlemen. Allow us from Bahasa Global to present the user guide on how to use the interpretation feature for the meeting today. Berikut adalah panduan dan pengaturan dalam Zoom meeting hari ini. Mohon pada saat masuk ke Zoom meeting, klik join audio. Mohon peserta mute mikrofon bila sedang tidak berbicara dan selalu menyalakan video selama meeting berjalan. Mohon mengakses Zoom dari koneksi internet yang stabil. Mohon bila berbicara dari ruangan tanpa suara latar. Mohon apabila Bapak atau Ibu mengakses Zoom meeting ini berdekatan dengan laptop atau gawai lain untuk dapat menggunakan headset, karena bila tidak dapat menyebabkan gaung atau feedback. Mohon pastikan telah mengunduh atau menggunakan aplikasi Zoom terkini supaya fitur interpretation ini tersedia di aplikasi Zoom Bapak Ibu. Good morning ladies and gentlemen. Please when entering Zoom meeting, click join audio. Please mute your microphone when you are not speaking and turn on your video for the whole durations of the meeting. Please access Zoom from a stable internet network. While you are speaking, please make sure there is no background noise. Avoid accessing Zoom nearby other users without using headset because it might cause echo or feedback noise. In order for this interpretation feature to be available in your devices, please make sure that you are using the updated Zoom application. Dan berikut adalah panduan cara mengaktifkan fitur penerjemahan apabila Bapak atau Ibu menggunakan laptop atau PC. Pada bagian pojok kanan bawah akan terdapat lambang bola dunia. Mohon untuk diklik Language Interpretation dan memilih bahasa yang Bapak atau Ibu ingin dengarkan. Mohon tidak perlu mute original audio dan tidak perlu pindah channel saat berbicara. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are accessing the Zoom using a laptop or PC, simultaneous interpretation feature is available. You can go to the bottom right of your screen. There you will find a globe icon or language interpretation button. Click it and select the language that you wish to listen. We recommend you to not mute original audio, and if you would like to speak, you don't have to turn off the interpretation button as well. Dan selanjutnya, apabila Bapak atau Ibu mengakses meeting kali ini menggunakan HP atau mobile phone, fitur penerjemahan secara simultan juga tersedia. Bila Bapak atau Ibu ke pojok kanan bawah akan ada 3 titik. Jika diklik akan ada Language Interpretation, lalu klik pilih bahasa yang Bapak atau Ibu ingin dengarkan dan tidak perlu mute original audio. Terakhir, jangan lupa klik dan bila sudah selesai. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are accessing Zoom using a mobile phone, simultaneous interpretation services are available. You can go to the bottom right of your screen. There you will find 3 dots. Click it and click Language Interpretation and select the language that you wish to listen. We also recommend you to not mute original audio and don't forget to click done when you have selected. Dan sebagai disclaimer Bapak Ibu, guna memastikan kelancaran pertemuan hari ini, host atau co-host berhak melakukan mute audio atau stop video para partisipan yang tidak sedang bicara saat mereka tanpa disengaja menyebabkan gangguan terhadap acara. Ini dilakukan untuk menjamin suara pembicara dan juru bahasa tetap jelas. Ladies and gentlemen, please note that to ensure the smooth running of today's meeting, the host or co-host reserve the right to force mute the audio or turn off the videos of participants who are not speaking that may be unintentionally causing disruptions to the meeting. This is to ensure that the audio of the speaker and interpreter remains clear at all times. We thank you for your cooperation in this matter. Terima kasih atas kerjasama Bapak dan Ibu sekalian. Have a productive meeting.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Om Swastiastu, Shalom, Salam Kebajikan, Namo Buddhaya. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to APEC workshop on the implementation of green building concepts and policies in emerging countries. It is a huge pleasure for me to be with you today, and thank you for joining us on this workshop. My name is Rara from Pusat Studi Urban Desain, and I am honored to be your host for this workshop today. This event is made possible through collaborations among 4 institutions: PT PSUD, an independent research-based community on urban design, as the organizer of this event, Banda Aceh City Government as partner of this workshop, and we are happy and delightful to have the full support of Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation and the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, Republic of Indonesia. Firstly, I would like to mention our distinguished guest, His Excellency Mr. Dadan Kusdiana, Director General of New Renewable Energy and Energy Conservation from the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, Republic of Indonesia. His Excellency Mr. Weri, Head of Regional Development Planning Agency of Banda Aceh. The Honorable Representative of APEC members from Chinese Taipei, Mexico, Philippines, and Malaysia, our distinguished speakers, guests, and participants. This workshop event is a part of Low Carbon Model Town APEC project dissemination, which aims to implement a low carbon town concept through the Act of Energy Usage Management that supports green building as a low carbon development strategy. In this project, Banda Aceh City, which located on the northwest part of Indonesia, has been chosen as the pilot area for the case study. And before the event starts, please allow me to inform you on the rules regarding the event. Please use your name, institution, as your Zoom ID, and also assign your audio setting into mute mode while the speakers give speech and presentation. And if you have any question, please type it on the chat box, and we will ask some of the questions to the speakers during the Q&A session. Questions also will be discussed by the speakers and moderators in the Q&A session. And don't forget to fill the attendance form, and the link will be distributed by the organizer in the chat box during the session. All of these rules will also be announced in the chat box throughout the event. So now I have a fantastic list of speakers for you, and we have divided this webinar into distinctive themes. The first one, we will hear the opening remarks from the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources. It will be followed by introduction of the project and findings by PT PSUD. And we will reach the webinar section 1, which will talk about the conceptual framework. The section 2 will talk about policy and regulations, and we will have a lunch break and also a registration for the participants that will join the section 3. And the last section will talk about implementation, a roadmap towards the green, It will be talking about implementation, best practice for emerging countries and cities. And the event will be ended by closing remarks by the Head of Regional Development Planning Agency of Banda Aceh. Now, before proceeding to the webinar section, let us first listen to the opening remarks that will be delivered by Pak Dadan Kusdiana, Director General of New Renewable Energy and Energy Conservation from the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources of Republic of Indonesia. Pak Dadan Kusdiana, over to you, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Rara. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi. Salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. Very good morning from Jakarta. Greeting to all of you. First of all, I would like to welcome to all of you for this APEC workshop on the implementation of the green building policies and concepts toward the low carbon model town. I would like also to appreciate and also to thanks for the cooperation, in particular to Pak Aziz from PSUD, and also to the Wali Kota of the Major of Banda Aceh, and also to my colleagues here in the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, and also in particular to the APEC, for the funding of these activities. So, Ibu Bapak sekalian, my friends, my colleagues, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia is currently the largest energy consumer in the region, in Southeast Asia, with primary energy consumption reaching, we are converting into the electricity, this is 2,475 terawatt-hour in 2019. This large energy consumption has an impact on the increase of the carbon emission, since most of them coming from the fossil fuel. To overcome these problems, one of the efforts that can be done is to reduce, of course, the carbon production, whether this is from the production supply or for the use or demand side. We know that in 2010, the Low Carbon Model Town project was initiated to support the reduction of the carbon emissions. In 2017, the city of Banda Aceh has been selected as one of the volunteers in the project feasibility study organized by the APEC. From the feasibility study, with focus on the building and transportation sector, modeling results saw that the reduction of the emission in Banda Aceh could reach 43 to 60% with the application of green building, and also 20 to 48% with the application of sustainable transportation model. The current green building low carbon model town project, including this workshop, is the continuation of the previous feasibility study project and will focus on the energy efficiency in the building sector with the main objective of promoting and guiding the emergence of policies on low carbon city models and also in green buildings. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, besides this cooperation, the government of Indonesia has taken various energy efficiency measures in the building sectors. In this sector, Indonesia has encouraged the implementation of green building through the enactment of some regulation on building constructions coming from Ministry of Public Works and Housing, in particular on green building, the establishment of national standardization of energy conservation in building, and also regulation coming from our Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources on the use of solar power generation system as means to solve the problem of energy saving, environmental protection, and also reducing CO2 emission from building sectors. The roadmap for energy efficient low carbon buildings and construction sector in Indonesia aims to provide a holistic approach to transform the sector by covering 8 activities areas: urban planning, new buildings, existing building, appliances and system, building operation, material, resilience, and also the use of renewable energy. That were identified by the Global Alliance for Building and Constructions through its regional roadmap for building and construction in Asia as the key areas to consider the transforming the sector. This roadmap will help to guide the support and also investment from government, development partners, and private sector partners for building and construction in Indonesia to be adaptable recovery plans to contribute in the national economy. So, Ibu Bapak sekalian, my colleagues, my friends, distinguished speakers, participants, in closing, through this APEC workshop toward low carbon model town, we hope that they can support Indonesia and also other APEC member countries to reach the target in the energy efficiency, especially in the building sector. This workshop is just the first step that hopefully could start the discussion on the importance of working together closely to enable the measure to reach the energy efficiency target. So in last, I would like to congratulate to all of you from the committee, also to the participants, and have a good and productive workshop. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pak Dadan. It is so inspiring to hear that both government and APEC, along with many different institutions, are cooperating on the effort to implement low carbon building in Indonesia. So before starting the main event, I would like to invite you all to take a photo together for a moment. Please turn on the camera and set the virtual background that is provided on the chat box if possible. And I will make the cue for each page. So for the first page, please put your best smile in the morning. I know you all already have the highest energy level in the morning, right? So now I can see all of the energetic face in the screen. Okay, so be ready. 1, 2, 3, smile for the first page. And now we're going for the second page. One, 2, 3. Okay, perfectly captured for both pages. Okay, now we will listen to an introduction of the project and findings regarding of this workshop. And please welcome Pak Aziz Sulaiman from PSUD to deliver the introduction of this project. The floor is yours, Pak Aziz.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Kadek dari Suara. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan. First of all, I would like to give an apologize on behalf of the President Director of Center of Urban Design Studies, or Pusat Studi Urban Desain, or it can be called PSUD, Mr. Adrianto Santoso, for suddenly being unable to attend to give a speech this morning because of another event that can be missed. However, the opening remarks have been prepared by our President Director, so I will read the remarks. Good morning, greetings, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, His Excellency Pak Dadan Kusdiana, the Director General of New Renewable Energy and Energy Conservation, the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources of Republic of Indonesia, the Honorable representatives of APEC members from Chinese Taipei, Mexico, Philippines, and also Malaysia, our distinguished speakers and moderators, and all our participants from around the globe. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Adrianto Santoso, and as the President Director of PSUD, I would like to express our gratitude to all those who made this event possible. It is an honor for us to be able to collaborate on a very fruitful event, especially in these times. Urbanization and rapid population growth will affect the future trends of Asia-Pacific economics, and it has tended to manage this current challenge, particularly in energy and carbon emission issues. To tackle these issues, one of the efforts that can be made is to reduce carbon production at the building and regional scale. By reducing emissions locally, it will also have an impact on reducing carbon exports globally, especially to the surrounding economies. As one of the efforts made in the is the Low Carbon Model Program, or LCMP, one of which is in the city of Banda Aceh, where a dissemination phase has been carried out in 2017. I also want to greet the Banda Aceh city government, academics, practitioners, and professional associations who have always provided very responsive responses and also collaborations during the preparation of the LCMP program since 2017. The workshop will be delivered tailored program to deliver the capacity building in energy efficiency policy evaluation, particularly in the green building implementation, with Banda Aceh as the case study. This project seeks to bring together policymakers and evaluation practitioners to highlight the value of evaluation and discuss the idea of developing an evaluation community. I believe that through a movement that we start together, we will make many positive contributions to our home. Bigger than that, thinking green will become a paradigm for the development of a city today for the future, especially in Indonesia. We hope that this event can be sustainable to provide a lot of enlightenment and insight for architects, planners, urban designers, even policymakers in Indonesia. Furthermore, the introduction of the project and findings will be delivered by my colleague, also representing the Bandung Institut Teknologi Bandung. Thank you. Okay, so that is the opening remarks from our President Director from Pusat Studi Urban Desain, or PSUD. So maybe we will continue to the presentation of the project findings. Okay, thank you for the share screen. Okay, so good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to introduce again. My name is Aziz Sulaiman. I am the organizer of the project from Center of Urban Design Studies, or PSUD, and also a lecturer in Institut Teknologi Bandung, particularly in Department of Architecture. Continuing the opening speech and introduction from Pak Adrianto as the President Director of PSUD, I would like to elaborate more on the background of this workshop event. So this event is basically as part of our ongoing collaboration project with the title The Implementation of Low Carbon Model Town, or LCMT, through Green Building Infrastructure and Management Platform, which is funded by the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation, or APEC, from 2020. In this presentation, we want to find out the current LCMT concept implementation with case study in Banda Aceh city in Indonesia, and the readiness of the city or government in policy development. Maybe to the next slide. Okay, so why Banda Aceh city? As we can see in the slide, because this project is a continuing program from the previous feasibility study project of LCMP that mainly conducted by Nikhanseki Research Institute, or NSRI, from 2017 to 2019 in 3 different volunteer towns or cities, such as Shah Alam City in Malaysia, Hang Tuah Jaya in Malaysia, and also Banda Aceh City in Indonesia. So in 2019, NSRI has published the final report of the project with some recommendations. One of them is low carbon building renovation, start from public facilities in the city center. So basically, we already have the basics of the study, and we want to continue the result of the study to a further stage, which is to start implementing the concept of LCMP. As you can see in the slide, this project involves several stakeholders, such as the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources of Republik Indonesia, as the initiator, facilitator, or the supervisor of this project. And then there is also APEC as the funder and also as inspiration in initiating this project. And then there is also Pusat Studi Urban Desain or PSUD and ITB as the executor, researcher, contractor, or implementer of this project. And last but not least, the local partner of this project from government of Banda Aceh City and also the University of Sheikh Kuala. And we can move to the next slide. So far, several activities have been done that support our project, such as the technical workshop of building measurement, webinar about green building, and also webinar in ITB to disseminate our previous activities. All of them was conducted in last year. And they are part of the data collection, initial studies, and also introductory event to raise and keep the awareness as well as the knowledge of the community in Banda Aceh. So the further study and also policy development can be easier to be conducted in future. And currently we are in the middle of doing the building measurement and building simulation, with main workshop as the main activity of this project. And our final goal is to publish the final report, which will be consist of some recommendations based on the studies and also discussions that will be held in this workshop today. Next to the next slide, please. So to gain more understanding on the readiness of Banda Aceh City in implementing the green building concept, there are three aspects that will be or has been identified. The first one is regarding the policy development through webinar and online discussion on the perception of green building concept. Second one is about building management and the occupants' behavior through survey and questionnaire of the building management. And the last one is energy consumption through building measurement and building simulation. Okay, so next is the first. Sorry, next slide. To the first step, we would like to identify the policy development or readiness through webinar and online discussion that was been held last year, titled Policy Development for Green Building Concept Implementation Towards Low Carbon City. Okay, so to the next slide. Based on the webinar and discussion, several key points have been taken from the speakers that will be presenting academic, practitioner, professional, and government to give different perspectives on how we can create or develop policies to implement the green building concept. Overall, some data and references have been presented in this event that can be used as our initial study as well as the recommendation basis for developing the policy and also the standard related to green building, particularly in Banda Aceh. Okay, so that's the first aspect, and next to this second aspect that is being identified, you can move to the next slide again. The next again. Okay, so move to the second aspect that is being identified is related to the building management and the occupants' behavior, which are currently being conducted. Okay, so to the next slide again. To identify the readiness of green building management in Banda Aceh City, we use several assessments related to green building, such as data gathering and also analysis through environment data and building data. There's also simulation and also retrofitting. We use public office building as the pilot project, and it is also the representative of public facilities that was mentioned and also recommended in the previous LCMP final report. So moving to the next slide, this is the location of the district office as the representative of public office building in Banda Aceh City. So Banda Aceh City, for your information, is the edge or is in far west of Indonesia, and is near to the beach side, coastal side. And then move to the next slide, please. So and this is only the illustration that we have done the measurement for the indoor environment and also electricity consumption in public office building using 4 kinds of measurement devices such as TND, and then hydro home electricity, and then neutron anemometer, and also neutron heat index. And then move to the next slide. So for the results of the measurement, to the next slide, please. So here are some results regarding the building management based on questionnaire. We ask in the questionnaire, we asked about the building occupancy, electricity usage, energy consumption from the lights, and the next slide, there will also consumption from the air conditioner. But what we want to highlight is the first one. There are at least 2 lamps in each room used all day during the working hours. So in daytime, they still use lamps. And not all of them are LED lamps or LED lights. It means that although the weather is sunny, the building users still need indoor lighting or artificial lighting to work inside the building. Okay, so next to the next slide. Moreover, the air conditioning or air conditioning is also installed and used in every workspace and in every rooms during the working hour, including in the break time. All of the toilets and or restrooms using a bathtub or water container, while they have dual flush toilet, but doesn't work, so they have to use water from the water container. Meanwhile, for the waste management, this building has already have waste separation system. So I think that it is a positive way of the green building effort. And then we move to the next slide. So from this survey, when we look into the measured indoor environment and then compare it with the outdoor environment from the National Meteorology Agency or BMKG, there are several findings, as we can see in the left diagram. So during office hour, the indoor temperature is lower than the outdoor temperature because of the air conditioning, while after the office hour, the indoor temperature tends to be higher than the outdoor temperature. Meanwhile, in the center, in the middle of the slide, we can see the humidity. The outdoor humidity is considered higher than increasing from the morning, while the indoor humidity as the opposite, by decreasing from the morning with lower state compared to the outdoor area. And then regarding the air velocity, the indoor air velocity is considered in smaller speed compared to the outdoor air velocity. So we can say that probably there is an issue in the air ventilation and also natural lighting or the building design, which can contribute, which actually can contribute more in the energy efficiency. And then to the next slide, maybe as the result of the first measurement, the hypothesis from the ongoing survey can be summarized into 3 several key points, such as the first one, the building has equipped with LED light and conducting waste separation, which can be the advantageous. And then second one, the dominant expenses from the building comes from electricity and waste bills. And the third one, the majority of the room are using air conditioning, resulting in cooler indoor temperature, smaller relative humidity, and less cost ventilation. Now, that's the hypothesis for this survey. Next to the last aspect that we identify is the energy consumption based on the direct measurement during survey and also from the simulation that has been conducted recently. But maybe due to the time constraints and limitation, I will explain it this section briefly. First, we measure the energy consumption using the Hijau home device as the basis for comparison with the simulation result. So, as we can see, the total energy consumption in a day is about 484 watt-hour. And if we divide it into two floors in the building, is relatively the same, about 240 watt-hour. And then next to the next slide, please. We try to do the simulation for the public office building using Open Studio to calculate the energy consumption within a year. So this is the illustration of the 3D modeling. Next is the illustration of the thermal zone configuration based on field survey in the existing building. And then next slide is the color represent the function and the air condition of each room in the building. So for the next slide is the result of the simulation. To the next slide, please. Based on the simulation results, we can see that the annual energy usage of the building is dominantly comes from the interior lighting and interior equipment for more than 80% of the total usage, then followed by the air conditioning and electric fan for about 20%. Okay, to the next slide. This is the energy consumption per month. We identified the trend for each month, and then to the next slide. Compared to the monthly HVAC load profile from the simulation, so the cooling load is increasing in that summer, peak in August, and then after that starting to decrease. To the next slide. So the result from the conducted survey and simulation in the meantime can be summarized into several points. The first one about the energy consumption is considered higher after the office hour, probably due to the lights from the lights of the lamps or the lamps that are turned on in the working hours. And the second, most of consumed energy comes from the indoor lighting and indoor equipment. And then the third one, the annual and monthly simulated electricity consumption is considered high. And the last one, about the retrofitting, we can say that retrofitting is necessary to find the most efficient energy consumption and to minimize the automation. Okay, to end up this introductory session, I would like to highlight some conclusion. Based on the identification of the three aspects, the overall results can be concluded as first, the regulation and strategy plan concerning green building implementation in national scale already available based on the previous webinar. Then, so the next step is to find out a formulation of a more contextual policies in a local scale. For example, in Banda Aceh City, this case study. Then the second one about the building management and occupant behavior. So although the high energy consumption is still dominantly caused by the lighting and HVAC, there is an opportunity to move towards green building management, but we think that more encouragement through government program is highly recommended to bring the policy makers can be implemented. And the last is about the electricity consumption that is still considered high and hasn't met the green building requirement. So therefore, building alteration through retrofitting is still necessary and will be done in further steps. Okay, so the next slide is the last two slides. So the conclusion I mentioned before is not the end of our study and analysis. So in the future, we will do some activities to complete this project, such as the first one is retrofitting the existing building to find out the most efficient energy consumption. And the second one, we want to add more study objects in several other buildings to make the results of the analysis more comprehensive and more obvious. And the third one is to drafting the recommendation to find out the best way for the government, our policymakers, particularly for Bandar City, to practically implement the green building or low carbon city concept. These are the further steps besides this workshop. So the last slide, we would like to say that on behalf of PSUD or the implementer of this project, we hope that this workshop will give a new insight to encourage the emerging cities, particularly Bandar Aceh City, as our most supportive partner in this project, to implement the LCMT concept through green building principles. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, thank you very much, Pak Aziz. Comprehensive explanation indeed. It is very much needed for us to start our webinar discussion today. And with those interesting information, it is now time for us to move on to the first webinar section, the most anticipated one, which will talk about emerging contextual green building and infrastructure concept framework in its representative country. In this section, it is going to be moderated by Bu Ade Tiname, who I'm now going to introduce and will take over this session. It is a pleasure to welcome you here. Hello, Bu Ade.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah, so she is the Director of Business and Development at the Center of Urban Design Studies. She graduated from Department of Architecture, Institut Teknologi Bandung, both for her bachelor and her master's. She also earned her doctoral degree at the Department of Urban and Regional Planning, University of Wisconsin-Madison, USA. Bu Ade has been joining PSUD since 1997 and currently practicing as a senior urban designer and planner. Her focuses of interest includes the urban design and development, public space legal planning, as well as urban anthropology and cultural studies. Bu Ade also actively engaged not only in researching on urban development, but also shaping regulatory aspects of them. So to Bu Ade, the floor is yours. I wish you a great webinar session.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So I am particularly I'm very delighted to have this section because we do have two speakers here. The first one is from the international level agency. I will be welcoming Dr. Wangda Zhu. Hello, Dr. Zhu. Can you hear me?
Yes. Good morning.
Okay, good morning. So I will be reading the bio of Dr. Zhu. So Dr. Zhu is a professor of architecture, engineering, and associate director for research and of Global Building Network, which is an initiative of Penn State, Pennsylvania State University, and United Nations on high performance building. Dr. Zhu also holds a joint appointment at the Community and Urban Science Group at the National Renewable Energy Laboratory and was a former scientist at Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory. Dr. Zhu also currently an associate editor of Journal of Solar Energy and Engineering and treasurers of International Building Performance Simulation Association. So Dr. Zhu also a recipient of IBPSA Fellow, ISCE Exceed Fellowship, the IBPSA USA Emerging Professional Award, Elihu Jury Early Career Research Award, and also Distinguished Service Award in ASHREA. And then he is also a major contributor to multiple open source building and community energy modeling tools, including LBNL, Modelica Buildings Library, and NREL Urban Op. I hope I didn't butcher some of this name, Dr. Zhu. And then without the further ado, I would like to pass the floor to Dr. Zhu. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Let me share my screen. Oops. Okay, yeah, so it's my pleasure to give introduction about our research. This is some work we did on net zero energy communities in Florida, US, and to the Smart Garden Alley projects in Makassar City, Indonesia. So today, my focus is really focused on communities because within communities is a step towards the future sustainable cities. As we know, in the US, building counts a really big part of our life. People spend most of the time inside the building. Therefore, buildings in the US counts for more than 40% of primary energy usage, and also more than 70% of electricity usage and large amount of CO2 emission. We know the same thing happened to APEC, other APEC country, and also especially in Asia. So more buildings, nearly half of the new buildings are built in Asian countries. So, but if you're looking for the future, it's really the cities, because we know because of the urbanization, people are moving to the cities. As the United Nations reports found that in 2050, nearly 70% of people is going to live in cities. And it also become the engine of our economic, but they also use a lot of energy and responsible for CO2 emission. So how can we, move from our current research on buildings to the future research to cities? So that's why, as you can see, the opportunity increased significantly when we move from buildings to cities, and we can make a much bigger impact. On the other side, the system becomes more and more complex, and more unknowns and more uncertainties. So to address this, we think it's a good idea to study communities and using community as a stepping stone when we move from buildings to cities. So in my talk today, I'm going to introduce two concepts. One is net zero energy community. The other one will be the smart garden alley. So by definition, what's the zero energy community? This is given by the United States Department of Energy. So it says that the zero energy community is an energy efficient community. We are on a source energy base. So in this case, we're talking about the generation from power plant energy used. And then the actual annual delivered energy is less than or equal to the on-site renewable exported energy. So, if you change the community to building, then you get definition for zero energy buildings. You can find this definition from the DOE website. So in our work, so we found a real-world zero energy build community in Florida. So this is the map is the U.S. map. So Florida is on the southeast corner of the U.S. So this is the Gulf of Mexico. As you can see, the island is called Anna Maria Island. So the community is called Historical Green Village, as you can see from this picture. So they have 5 commercial and residential buildings mixed, and then those buildings together form community energy systems. And so they have installed meters to measure all the data, and also my team installed a local weather station, solar irradiation sensor to measure the weather conditions. Now, this picture shows, the community was built in 2012, and my team started work with them in 2015. Then, recently we also, with the community again. So this figure shows the net energy usage and production of this zero energy community. If you see the center zero, so the blue color indicates the community produces more electricity than it needs. Therefore, it exports energy to the power grid. So the salmon pink color indicates the community needs more energy than it can produce. Therefore, it imports energy from the power grid. So in the real world, you can see the imports and exports are changing dynamically. Depends on the solar availability. Also depends on the usage of energy in the community. And also, this is a live community. Things is happening over time. You can see, for example, in 2012, when they added more PV on the parking lot, then they significantly boost the production. But then later, a bakery moved to this community, then they use a lot of energy, so that it become net energy importer. And then they add more PVs, produce more energy, and then another building move in. So you can see things are changing over time. So when you have a zero energy community, you need to connect the community to the power grid, because when the sun is not there, you can use the power grid as your virtual battery. So then the utility is going to charge the community in 2 terms. One is the actual electricity they use, or kWh in terms of units. The other one is the max power that the utility has to provide to support the community. For example, you can see pink line here, because that's the backup entire capacity needed. We call it capacity charge. So then to the community operator, the question is how can they minimize the cost, because cost comes 2 parts, right? So they can add more PV, or they can to boost the production, or they can add a battery, so when to cut the peak power. So all are very interesting real world question, economical questions. To help them to understand these questions, and also for them to support the future design or retrofit of their energy community. So we start a project supported by the U.S. National Science Foundation. It's trying to do the planning for smart, sustainable, and connect communities. So this is joint research with Virginia Tech. So my team in these projects to create the virtual testbed for their energy community. So the left figure shows the actual schematic of this community. As you can see, all the buildings are connected through ground coupled heat pump systems. They use the groundwater as a source for heating and cooling. Of course, for Florida, which is a typical tropical climate like Indonesia, so the most need is cooling. And then those heat pumps provide cooling for for those buildings, but they also provide cooling for the refrigeration box, like refrigerators. And then they also have PV. Then they form systems, and then they connect to the power grids. In addition, they also have the solar water heater provide the hot water. They also have electric heater as a backup. So the right figure shows the top level model we built for their energy community. As you can see, we have the PV, we have power grids, we also have heat pump connections. So all these models are open source released and at our lab website. So we build these models using a language called Mandelica, so which is an equation-based object-oriented language. So yeah, for those who have done, who use Open Studio, Energy Plus, I see in the project we use Open Studio, right? So Open Studio is based on a simulation engine called Energy Plus, developed by the Department of Energy. So right now in the US, we're developing the next generation of Energy Plus based on Modelica. So it's really designed for the building and community energy system with the control. So let me give you more introduction about the system we build. So using the PV subsystem example. So here we use a hierarchy approach. If you see the PV icon, if you open that, you will see there's 8 different PV subsystems located on the different buildings roof. If you open one, now you can see the individual PV subsystems. This is vectorized. That means a subsystem can have 10, 20, 30 PV panels. And then if you open that, you can define the individual panel, calculate the electricity generation based on the solar radiation. And then you're able to calibrate your individual panel based on its production. So after that, you can package it, then form your subsystem, and then you calibrate your subsystem, then package it, and then at the end, you have calibrated PV systems. So we also validate our model. As you can see here, we compared our predicted energy production by the PV with the measured data. So we have the physical model. We also developed artificial neural network model that the purpose is to speed up the simulation. So for both models, our prediction quite good aligned with the measured data. But we do have some discrepancy, as you can see here. So our model sometimes over-predict the energy generation, or sometimes under-predict. So then we try to study what's going on. It turns out initially we used the solar electric data from a nearby weather station. If you ever come, I think for the colleagues in Indonesia, on island, the cloud is moving, which seems to Florida. So when the cloud moves to your community, then you don't get solar radiation. So that result is significantly different than the weather station if there's no cloud. So to get a more accurate weather prediction, so we install our own weather station at the community, so that we can now the results become really match the metadata. So then we did the same thing for all the other systems like heat pump, all the buildings. Then we can have a validated virtual testbed, or sometimes you can say digital twin of a zero energy community. So when you have this kind of digital twin, then you can use it to study different things. For example, how I'm able to control the community to provide a service to the power grid, for example, to cut peak power, what we call a demand response, and to minimize the cost for the owner. So yeah, then we did a follow-up research by working with 2 U.S. Department of Energy National Laboratory, the PNL and the Operations Lab, to develop advanced control for the zero energy community. So the left shows our model-based optimization framework. So we largely use Python and optimization engines and use Modelica to predict the performance of the control. So the right figure shows some of the results. So what happened that in this case, we want to reduce the cost and minimize the peak power we take from the power grids. So if you see the zero line, means where I don't have any. Okay, so this is compared to without advanced control. If zero, that means my new control is same as the conventional control. But what happens at the night, as you can see, the new control trying to cut energy consumption because there's no renewable energy generation. Right. So then during the day, when the sun comes out, then I try to use more energy to charge my battery, to cool my building. So then when the sun is down, I can again cut my energy consumption. So that in that case, I can minimize the peak demand. So yeah, if you want to know more information about this project, I can find the information from our lab website. Yeah, so we are thinking about working on the US is the developed country, can we really apply some of the we call smart community technology to developing country? So luckily, by working with our Indonesia colleagues, so we got another project from the National Science Foundation and the US Department of State. So this is trying to work with the Makassar city to modernize their garden alley to make it become smarter garden alley. The left figure shows the city, a conventional alley. The right figure shows their garden alley. So I definitely recommend you to visit the garden alley. It's very beautiful. So in our project, and also we learned from the city. So the city, they believe, the city is just a human being. So the garden alley is trying to improve the living environment of the citizens. It's just like create healthy cells for the human being. So what we propose to do is to aid the sensor networks to measure the environmental data, quantify the quality of those garden alleys, just like aid the nerves. And then we use machine learning to process the data we collected so that we can provide information for the city government to make informed decisions, just like add a brain to the human being. And so far, we have, working with our colleagues in Indonesia, we have developed a sensor network which can collect different environmental data. You can see the PM2.5, PM10, SO2, and etc. And also, our Indonesian colleagues also conduct a survey with the residents and the management team of the alleys, trying to understand the operation of the alley and also what is the needs of the local residents. And then we use those information as input to develop a machine learning model. The idea is trying to understand what is the relationship between, from like the input, solar radiation, irrigation, how frequent you do irrigation, fertilizer, reception, etc., to the output, which is growth of edible plants and growth of inedible plants. So in this case, so we used a recurrent neural network trying to figure out the complex relationship between the input and outputs. So last month, we organized a joint workshop in Washington, D.C. So the mayor with his team come to the U.S. and we had an event to exchange the research findings. And we also visited the Green Alley in Washington, D.C. And as a short conclusion, so far there's many progresses in green community infrastructure for energy, environment, water, and so on. So in my talk, I only give two examples. One is energy, the other one is environment. So I think the future is really the integration of different green infrastructures for a holistic solution. As we know, the sustainability and the resilience are global challenges which needs a global solution. At Penn State, so we are working with United Nations, to form this global building network, trying to promote high-performance building globally. We'll welcome more partners, like from the APEC country, to join our network. If you have any question, feel free to email me. Here is my contact information. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Zhu. What a very comprehensive presentation, and then so many technical terms and as well approach. This is quite new for us, I guess, but it is very beneficial for us for the future research. So we're moving on to the second speaker, Ibu Dian Irawati from Kementerian PUPR. Hello, Ibu Dian. Apa kabar? Good morning. I hope you're healthy. So I will be reading Ibu Dian's bio. Okay. Ibu Dian is the Director for Engineering Affairs for Human Settlement and Housing, Directorate General of Human Settlement, who is responsible for quality assurance of settlement and housing infrastructure development at the Ministry of Public Works and Housing, Kementerian PUPR ya. Ibu Dian is an architectural school graduate who has decades of experience in the field of human settlement infrastructure development, especially in the construction of building and the neighborhood planning. In the implementation of green building, currently Ibu Dian is assigned by the minister to be responsible for the construction of the green building. She was appointed as a certificate officer for green buildings since 2020. Ibu Dian also initiated the establishment of a green community through the declaration of the Green Building and Sustainable Construction Community in April 2022. This community consists of experts, academics, practitioners, construction workers, governments spread throughout Indonesia. So welcome, and then I will be giving the floor. You may start the presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ibu Ade, as a moderator for my opportunity. Good morning, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I am Dian Irawati, the Director of Human Settlements and Housing Engineering Development, the Ministry of Public Works and Housing. I am honored to be here and sharing our green building policy and its implementation in Indonesia. I will divide my presentation into 4 parts. First is I will explain about the green building policy in Indonesia and then its implementation in Indonesia. Next, I will share the roadmap of green building implementation in Indonesia and the challenges we are facing of. And the last, I will share our experience and ongoing research project related to the low carbon building or hot humid climate of Indonesia. Next, as an overview, we must understand the legal aspect of the implementation of green building in Indonesia. A few years ago, Indonesia enacted what we call omnibus law or creating law or job creating law, sorry. There were some significant changes, including on the building sector. The job creating law mandates 49 implementing regulation related to the buildings. This law then derivated by the government regulation number 16, year 2021, or sometimes we refer as Indonesian Building Code. In Part 8, it is clearly mandated that the buildings with specific requirement fulfilling the green building criteria. In the same part, requirements for the implementation of green building are stipulated. Further, this regulation thus detailed by the Ministry Regulation number 21, year 2021 concerning green building. The Ministry Regulation then become kind of green building rating tools containing the green building categories such as Pratama, Madhya, and Utama, and the requirements to obtain green building certificate. To give the technical guideline on how to assess and how to measure green building, the Ministry of Public Works and Housing published the Ministry Decree number 1517, year 2021, and Circular Letter number 1, year 2022. As the face of the nation, the new capital city of Indonesia, so-called Nusantara, is designed as the forest city with the consideration of sustainable development. with the vision of Kota Dunia untuk semua, in English, the word city for all, the capital city of Nusantara aims to develop a sustainable city in the world, a city that manages the resources efficiency and provides services effectively with the well-organized land use and spatial management, also efficient use of energy and water resources, and also clean and healthy waste and sanitation. Also integrated transportation modes, as well as the arrangement of livable, healthy, comfortable, safe, and sustainable housing and human settlements. This objective is in accordance with the 11 principles of implementation of green buildings in accordance with Articles 108 of the Government Regulation number 16, year 2020, and Article 3 of the Ministry of Public Works and Housing Regulation number 20, year 2021. The new capital city has to meet key performance indicators such as safe and affordable, environmentally friendly, interconnected, active, and accessible, also circular and resilience, low emission, economically growth, and comfortable and efficient through technology and innovation, and also aesthetics. What is the relationship between the green building and development of new capital city of Nusantara? The principles of development in the new capital of Nusantara support the principle of green building itself, such as energy efficiency, procurement of green space, low emission development, and others. Of the 8 principles, the new capital city of Nusantara, 7 of them are closely related to the green building principles. If we take a look at the KPIs, the green building concept closely related to the one of the KPIs of Nusantara, which is KPI Nusantara 4 is low carbon emission development. In the new capital, it is target that 60% of energy saving is achieved by the energy conservation in the buildings. It means the implementation of green building play important role in the development of the new building in the Nusantara. The government through the Ministry of Public Works and Housing mandate all the newly constructed building in the Nusantara must meet the green building requirements. It is imperative for all services providers for Nusantara, including consultant, building contractor, to understand and implement the green building requirement. The Ministry of Public Works and Housing concerned about the green building very much